Hello and welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Framework Podcast. I'm Jamie Hopkins. I'm joined with my co-host Anna Trulio-Lamone and somebody who actually just got to see this summer in person, Brittney Castro. Excited to have you on, right? CEO, founder, and we said Britt, definitely a regular and a star at this type of work. So it's going to be easy job for Anna and I here today. So Brittney, really excited. Thanks for coming on the show here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me both. It was fun meeting you both in person. It's such a treat nowadays too.
Definitely, especially after following your career from, almost a decade ago and watching your kind of meteoric rise. It was really fun to meet you in person. I rarely fangirl, but I'm doing it a little bit today.
Oh, you're so sweet. No, and I'm so proud and happy we connected and all that you two are doing. It's amazing.
Yeah, Anna is being serious. She was fangirling a little bit in the email chain, too, as she texted. She was really happy. She's like, Brittney wrote back right away. She's in. She's doing the show with us. Then I was like, we should have done it out there, but we didn't do on-location shoots at that point. And but, yeah, so thanks for being here. Can you do the 30 seconds of who you are, what you do for those who don't know you, Brittney?
I'm a certified financial planner, founder and CEO of Financially Wise Inc., which is a financial education and now media company. I did financial planning for 15 years in my career. Last year, I transitioned out of individual financial planning. I now refer all the business to another firm. So my RIA is no longer an RIA. I shut down the RIA last year because mainly now my work is education content, financial literacy for my own brand, for other brands. I've worked with Chase, Mint, Altruist, a lot. I do a lot of financial wellness programs at companies like Airbnb, Zoom, Nutanix, and recently I've been doing more media, which includes TV, media appearances. So kind of how I tell people about my company now, it's almost like I'm a production company creating financial literacy content, whether that's for television, other brands and their marketing campaigns, my own TikTok and social media accounts. But it's really fun to be here in this point in my career because it was always part of my vision long term. And I think, now it's just kind of all the pieces came together, especially with social media and even the pandemic, being 100% more virtual. So it's fun to be here now. But I always like to say I still have 15 years of experience working as a financial planner, working with clients, running a business. I know how hard it can be and all the challenges that we face as financial planners.
Yeah, you've actually been there and done it. It's
yeah,
very well. The TikTok. I do want to get to that later. I'd love your thoughts on it, and obviously you've been doing work there, which I find just very interesting. I'm more of a, consumer of TikTok now than anything else. But another thing that we always ask people at the beginning of the show, kind of our icebreaker question, is about food. What comes to your mind about food? Is it social? Is it a favorite meal, type of cuisine? What's that thing about food that you really love or want to speak to?
I'm pretty basic when it comes to food. I do think it's a social thing for me. I've never been a foodie. I could actually eat the same food every day, like a smoothie in the morning, salad, steak for dinner. And I would be happy and content. But I do think food is interesting because so many people, it kind of brings out people's unique personalities or their hobbies and interests. And now more than ever, I feel like it's just such an entertainment, going to restaurants and it's a whole showcase. Here in Beverly Hills, we have that famous steak restaurant where he's literally a celebrity putting salt on the steak. And I mean, now it's part of our versions of entertainment. Food has become that. So I think it's interesting. And a small random fact is when I was in high school, I actually worked at a restaurant. So I was a server for 5 years, from 16 to 21, made a lot of money being a server. And I actually thought when I was going to college, I would open up a restaurant. That was I always wanted a business, and I thought a restaurant would be something I would love to do because of that social element. I love people, I love social interaction. But working at restaurants, you realize it's not that profitable of a business model, and it's a lot of time, and you never really get a day off. And so anyway, I found another career, but I do love the idea of food and the social aspect of it.
Yeah, you got Salt Bay.
Oh yeah,
right?
I live
Salt Bay, that's him.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, do you go there
I
a
have
lot?
not been
Check 'em
actually,
out?
but it was a thing. Like a handful of my friends went, and they were actually, some of them left because they realized when he wasn't going to be there, what's the point of paying like for a $600 steak if you're not going to get that experience of him putting the salt on the steak? So anyway, funny.
Great. Well, maybe next time when we're in LA doing our TikToks
Let's
that we promised
do
each
it.
other on Twitter.
Let's do it. We'll all go there.
So Brittney, you talked about, well, you were in college wanting to own a restaurant, but when you were like a little kid growing up, what did you want to be when you grew up, and how did you kind of evolve to get into financial services?
I always had this idea of being a businesswoman. I don't know where it came from, but when I was a kid, I just always was the kind of person leading the way. Like I was always the leader, whether it was on the dance team or in like ASB. I just loved it. I think it was like a natural skill set, and I had a lot of great teachers, and I think people who helped mentor that aspect in me. And I didn't even know what financial advisor was, financial planner. I had no idea. Like literally, I went to school, studied business economics, and it wasn't until I was graduating and got a job offer as a financial advisor that I knew what this career was. And I simply just took the job. I talked to my career counselor and I said, here's the job offer. What do you think? And she said, well, it sounds like a great thing. Like you could learn business, you could learn finance, you can help people, just take the job, which I think is such a great advice, because nowadays I feel like a lot of people get stuck in like, what should I do? Or I don't know what my passion is. It's like, who cares? Just take a job and figure it out. Like, I you know, like, it's not like I knew my passion was financial planning. And I would even say my passion is financial planning now. I'm just a passionate person. So anything I do reflects that aspect of me. If I dance, I'm passionate. If I'm having fun with my family and friends, I'm passionate. If I'm doing my career, I'm passionate about it. So luckily, I feel like I grew up in a time where I was able to like not be so influenced by, I think, like this idea of we have to love what we do at every moment of the day, kind of like fantasy. And I just started as a financial advisor and figured it out along the way.
Did you have a first money memory? You've probably asked some clients that. You probably built some content on it yourself. Do you have one personally?
Yes, so my first money memory, I've done this activity many times, was when I think I was probably like 2 or 3, and I had this Cabbage Patch, I was a total 80s kid, piggy bank and a bag of pennies. Like my parents must have just given me a bag of pennies, and I just remember putting the pennies in the piggy bank, and it was like a fun activity for me. So that was like the fun first memory I had with money. And if you ask my family, they'll say, you know, I was like very methodical growing up. Like I would love to read catalogs of like stores. I don't know. I had this weird, and I loved my toy cash register. I even used to tell my parents, like, I want to be I don't even know what you call them, cashier when I grow up, just so I could push the buttons and the machine and the money and then like give the change. And then I even had this fake checkbook that was with my cash register toy. And I loved writing checks because I would see my mom writing checks. You know, back then it was like you write checks at the grocery store, and I loved it. And I would just like write the fake checks all the time. But, you know, all of these things, it was like you don't really know until you look back and you then like think, oh, it's kind of interesting how now I'm in finance. And a lot of it was probably just natural interests I had, but didn't know it growing up.
The other one I like asking people about this too, since you brought up catalogs. Do you have a like first purchase that really stood out for you? Right, it might not be the biggest thing, but what was that first thing you remember? Maybe like just buying, maybe it was your own money from one of those catalogs.
Oh, from one of the catalogs. I don't really remember that, but I do specifically remember we had a budget. Like my parents were a middle class, single income household. My mom pretty much raised us 3 kids. My dad worked. And so we would get an allowance for back to school shopping, and we would always have like this budget in mind. And I remember as soon as I turned 16, I wanted a job, because it was always understood in my household, if you want more, you go make money and get it for yourself. And I think that was one thing I just remembered when I was 16. I wanted to get more. I think I just wanted to pay for like a dress and not have a budget. You know, I wanted to get the clothes myself. And so that was one of the things I remember. It's like, oh, money gives me the opportunity to have more available to me, or more options. And it was really great because my parents taught us a lot of those principles around money management, and now I still really value them.
So Brittney, tell us about your journey into starting your own business, and what that was like for you.
Crazy. Okay, so when I was 26, right when I graduated college, I was 22. I got a job at Ameriprise Financial. And that was in 2006, when there was still a lot of money being poured into broker dealers to cultivate younger advisors, meaning we got training and we had a manager, we learned sales, we learned marketing, we learned financial planning. Like, I remember a 60-hour work week schedule, and every, we had these model weeks where you had activities, right? You're cold calling or in a class learning about something. And when I was 26, I was like, hey, I'm doing pretty good here. I'm getting all these awards, but I don't really feel like this is the path I can sustain on long term. I just felt very drained a lot. And I would look at my friends who were in their 20s and think, wow, they're having all this fun. They're traveling, and here I'm just working all the time. And I just couldn't, I felt like I lost a lot of those parts of me, right? Like this fun, passionate, social person, because I was like becoming so rigid in this role. So I decided I wanted to stay in the financial industry, because that was like around 2009 when everything was like the Great Recession was happening. And I was like, okay, I want to stay in financial industry, but I cannot stay in this platform. Like, I have to get out of this version of how it operates. So I just started exploring and using LinkedIn. Actually, was my first social media platform. And I saw these advisors in West LA. They were younger. They were like in their 30s, and they had an OSJ, and they worked for LPL. So they reached out to me. We had a conversation. I was like, I have no idea. Are they scam artists? I don't know. I had all this like weird paranoia back then. Because you kind of don't know who to trust. And I was like on this, I felt like a lone ranger on this pioneer journey, right? So I just remembered I was getting my CFP designation and trying to figure out where do I go, right? Like, where do I go in this industry? So I ended up taking that leap of faith. And you guys probably remember, I don't know if it's like this anymore, but back then when you left a broker dealer, you have to like leave on a Friday, start calling your clients on the weekend, telling them you're leaving. I thought I was going to be arrested. I mean, it was like so weird. Like, and looking back, I'm like, oh, geez, it makes it sound so serious. Like, you're just leaving a company. But so I left and went to LPL with the vision to like use it as a platform to eventually have my own RIA. I don't know how I knew I wanted an RIA. I just knew I wanted equity in my business, because I didn't want to keep building this business without having equity. And that was my business owner vision, I think, like have a business to eventually sell. So I did the LPL for a few years. And when I was there, it was like 2010. And I was leveraging, that was like when social media was starting to hit with bloggers. And I started leveraging social media, calling compliance every day. Here's why you need to approve my tweets. You probably know there's like, like Ron Carson was one, but there's like a handful of people who were like starting to use social media at that time who were actual financial planners or professionals. So I reached out to a few of them and just like started building a social media presence, building my brand. And then after about a few years there, I took the next leap, which was to start the RIA. So all of these steps I didn't know were happening or like coming. I just knew take the next step. And then like the path started to get more and more clear. But along the way, I remember when I left Ameriprise and I went to LPL and then LPL to the RIA, those two big transitions, I remember being like terrified. Like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? You know, because I didn't come from like an entrepreneur family. So it was very like going against the grain, going against the path that was given, like told, you know, here's how you succeed in life. But I was trusting my vision and trusting myself, I guess, enough to do it. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, as you both know. It's not linear at all. It's like tons of twists and turns, but it's fun.
So you brought up that, oh, sorry, Jamie.
No, I was going to say, I really like that framework, which was the, you know, trust your vision, yourself, and just take the next step. And I think that's a really important lesson for a lot of people when they look at somebody like you who's done creative and successful things. If you don't take those steps, they tend not to occur, right? And a lot of people think, oh, when's the perfect time to do this? I mean, there's almost never a perfect time to leave your broker-dealer or firm and go start another firm, right? You got to trust it.
Absolutely.
So that feeling of, oh, sorry, Brittney, that feeling of kind of being uncertain or nervous, how did you deal with that? And how did you kind of get over that?
I just had a lot of mentors, and not even like real life mentors. Like most of them were virtual. I read books. I studied people who were successful. I went to a lot of workshops and invested a ton in myself. Like personal growth and spiritual development is huge. So I think by having those resources, whether they were books or maybe at that time some YouTube videos or going to a workshop and hearing someone speak, it gave me enough confidence to at least do it. Yeah, but I think when you have a vision or a dream, there's also something in you. And for me, I just always have been like a strong listener to it, like in you, moving you forward. So I was like, well, I'd rather go this way than, and I never had a plan B. Like I just always was like, this is going to work out. And I don't know, I don't have like another idea of what will work out. Right. So I just was always clear on my vision enough where I would, even if I had insecurity or doubt, I would keep moving forward toward that because staying where I was no longer an option.
You brought up your voice a little bit too, and kind of, you know, brand building and finding that. And, you know, obviously social media back then, 2010, especially for advisors, was very early stage. Was there anyone that you really looked up to at that time that you thought was doing it well then, right? I think there's a lot of people doing it better today, but who were some of those people that kind of inspired you to build your voice? Yeah,
two people really. Jeff Rose, he was a CFP at LPL. And Kathy Curtis, who is also a CFP. Those two, I guess maybe because they were connected to LPL, or I think Jeff was connected to LPL. That's how I found him. And then Kathy was a woman in financial planning, running her own RIA. And there's not too many like that. So I think they both stood out. And I simply reached out to them, called them. They helped me. And I looked at them as like role models, doing what I wanted to do, right? And so I still, even I remember like a few years later, we all happened to speak on one panel together. And I was like, so cool how that happens, right? Like these role models. And then now I'm on the panel with them too, talking to Michael Kitces about branding. You know, it was just like funny how it all works out. But yeah, those two back then were my examples.
Who do you...
So you brought up branding just now. How did you kind of develop your brand and how do you maintain and cultivate it?
I developed the brand by studying other brands and taking a lot of branding workshops. So I even hired, I think in 2010 when I started at LPL, I found a mentor who was a creative director and helping women create brands in their businesses. And she took me through this brand handbook, activity, exercise, and I've, you know, back then you write like everything, right? Your ideal client, your color palette, your mission statement, like the whole book of brand elements. And since then, I've just updated every year. And now it's like gets more and more simplified, mainly because I've had a brand. So a lot of it now is just keep evolving it and elevating it for myself and communicating it to the team, whoever is on my team at this point, or whoever I work with. But I think it takes work. People want to skip the steps. And I think especially I've noticed, I don't know anymore how it is because I'm not dabbling in that. But when I was starting out, a lot of financial advisors did not want to invest in themselves, in the brand, and they were so cheap. And I thought, what? Why are you being so cheap? This is like your business and this is your brand. Don't you want to learn and invest in coaches and mentors and books and workshops? But a lot of people even now will reach out, can I pick your brain? And I say, yeah, you can pick my brain. Here's a mentor session. Feel free to book a time with me. It costs money. And they don't do it. So I don't know. I mean, everybody wants free advice and like the quick fix, but it really doesn't work that way. You have to invest time, money, and energy.
Advisors are extremely cheap,
They're
and
extremely
it hasn't changed.
Put that as the tagline of this podcast.
Yeah, my second edition of my book came out, Rewirement, and I mean, I get advisors that just ping me and be like, will you send me a copy? And I'm like, literally does cost me money to print a book and put it in the mail and send it to you. Like, they also sell them, and they're like $4 on Kindle. It costs more money to send it.
I know.
Oh, but so what is your color palette then? That's a fun one. I like favorite colors, right? A color palette. Did you know what yours was, or did you actually like look at like research around what appeals to the demographics that you're interested in too?
So I'll take you through. Every year I kind of update it, and we just redid it. And because now so like a few years ago, I decided to expand. I was Financially Wise Women because I was building a niche and a name for myself in that niche. But I work with a lot of couples and a lot of men, and I was doing a lot of speaking. So I said, I cannot keep niching myself. I need to now evolve my company and my brand, and the color palette needs to match. So we went more to like a neutral, like beige, black, white, for many, and like a soft green or something, because I wanted to make sure it was attracting men and not just saying like it's all women, women, women. So that was it for a while. And now I said, I kind of took a hiatus year, like this past year. I think both of you, maybe I said it at that meeting where we were in person. After I transitioned out of individual client work, I said, you could take a year and coast for a little bit, knowing I would come back and like do the speaking and media full time. But during that time, I was like, oh, my brand is kind of like flat. Like it doesn't, I need to evolve it. And now I'm putting a lot more energy. So I was like, we need to Miami this brand up. So I was like, spice it up. Like I'm Latina. I was like, where's my Latina passion? It's like my brand palette is so bland. So now I said, we need hot pink and green. And I actually went to a lot of alpha men and I said, what do you think about these color palettes? Because I wanted to make sure it wasn't turning away men. And they gave me their feedback. And then, I kept telling my designer, look, spice it up. I want it to be more bright, more bold. So that's where it's at right now. Maybe in a few years it'll change again, but it is a little bit trying to just be more colorful right now and still appeal to the ideal avatar person who comes. But I realize I want to be attracting people who are passionate, who want to have more. And I'm not just working with individual clients anymore. So I didn't feel like limited in that. I'm like more social. Hitting the mainstream is like where I'm trying to go with my media and brand. So it needs to be a little bit loud.
I love that. The hot pink's my favorite color. I'm working with a coach right now, and she's having me do like the brand colors and everything. And I picked a hot pink for mine. So, but you brought up like you're Latina, you want the bright colors. What kind of role does authenticity play in being yourself in your marketing plan and building your brand?
It changes all the time. When I first started in 2010, I think back then it was so professional, right? Everyone was like, you have to be professional. You have to have your professional social media and then your personal. And I was like always testing the waters, right? Like bringing my authenticity and my personal style into it. But now just with the pandemic and everybody is on social media with TikTok and Instagram, like a lot of those filters went away completely. So not that we don't have to be professional, you can be professional, but this stigma of hiding or, oh, you're a dentist or you're a financial planner, therefore you should be this kind of person, is not there like it was 10 years ago. We had to really kind of like transition into it. So now with this new version of my brand, I'm just trying, like I still love keeping privacy. I think that's important. Like a lot of my family and friends and personal life aren't on my social media, and I do that on purpose. But also I've learned, okay, if I am now getting more mainstream, I do want to showcase more of who I really am, which is so dynamic, right? Like I love dance, I love travel, I go to the desert, I do meditation a lot. So showcasing it in a way that I still feel like it's respecting those elements of my life, but not just like Brittney, professional business girl, because that's like only one area of who I am. So it's always like a work in progress, I guess, is the end. But authenticity is huge. I've created my own content since day one, like 100% of my content. Even when I have a social media manager help me develop content, I still give her like my content library. So she knows how I talk. She knows what I'm saying. And then she morphs it into like graphics or something like that. But I think that's also being like, you know, I'm so mean, right? Advisors are cheap and they're also lazy. But I think a lot of advisors want to just like copy and paste, and it doesn't work, especially now. Like, how are you going to copy and paste content in 2021? Like, that makes no sense, because the content that really sticks is people's own voice and their own personality coming through in the content.
Yeah, I think COVID was actually very helpful for that, in the sense of, you know, the lockdowns that people were in and being in their home, because it forced a lot of people to be a little bit more authentic. Like, you couldn't just be professional and in your suit and tie and in the office all the time. You were, you know, and it is very personal, right? Like, you were on a Zoom and you were inviting somebody into your house.
Exactly.
And then, you know, me, I remember, you know, it was March of 2020. And I think for the first like 2 weeks, I still wore a suit and tie in my home office, right? Because I also thought, hey, this is not going to be that long. I'll probably be back on the road, maybe in May. And I remember I even shot one of my first videos and I still had a pocket square. And like, there's a couple people that still make fun of me for that one. They were like, you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic and I've got my pocket square on in my video. And then I didn't cut my hair for for this whole time. And now I'm back in suits again and I'm back on the road. But I do think it gave a lot of people just that ability to maybe be not as buttoned up with everything. And I thought, you know, that's, you know, we talked about a lot of things we lost over the last year and a half. But I think that's one thing that we gained. And I see it, you know, you see more and more advisors less dressed up than you did 5 years ago and 2 years ago.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think that was always the model when I started my RIA. I was mainly virtual from day one, even though I had a physical location. So now it's just amazing to see a lot of not only the financial industry, but the workforce in general is caught up to this idea that you don't need to be brick and mortar in a suit and tie every day. Yes, I think it's nice, like you said, Jamie. I like that you're back in it. I like that we're all dressed professional again. Because now we're in a different season, right? It was nice to be chill and relaxed and more vulnerable, I guess, in these meetings and content that we're developing. But it's also nice to like also get back and elevate who we are. And, you know, what I just think, like, you know, what you showcase is always like you want to be the best version of yourself. But yeah, it was a nice part for a lot of people, I think, to help them get more and more comfortable with just being themselves.
So Brittney, a couple of days ago, you posted a picture of you and Kim Kardashian on LinkedIn, and you said throwback to when Kim Kardashian had me teach what and how, and tell us about that.
Yeah, it's funny because I've never, like, you know, now that I'm like back, right, I feel like I'm back after a year hiatus. I was like, okay, I've done a lot of cool things. I just need to start showcasing it more. And maybe people saw it 4 years ago, but a lot of new people haven't seen it. And if I'm trying to like make sure people know who I am. I want to showcase all the cool things I've done. So I posted that. That was like a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago. They were filming for their show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and they were hosting at the Alexandria house, like a workshop day for these women who wanted to get back on their feet. And part of it was financial literacy. Another part was like the makeover, getting them dressed for interviews, building their self-confidence. So I was hired to do the financial wellness part of it, which was really cool. I mean, it was also filming for a show, so, it's a little different. But yeah, it was a fun experience. And quite frankly, with like most of the opportunities I get, they just found me. They found me through social media and the content I was developing. So I've been very fortunate that most of the clients over when I started the RIA, and a lot of the speaking and brand opportunities have come inbound, meaning I don't really pitch. Right when I started this RIA, I was like very clear. I don't want to cold call all day. Like, I just want to create content and have people come to me. And so I was able to do it with my client base. And then I just kept that same mentality with like the speaking and media partners. I was like, I just want to create really cool content so that brands notice, and then they come to me and say, oh, we want to hire you to teach this workshop, or hire you to speak at the conference, or hire you to be our spokesperson for, our campaign. So that's kind of the mentality I created, and I still have it. So a lot of times creating consistent content, it's not about maybe getting the client after 1 week of posting on LinkedIn, but it's about consistency. And 6 months later, opportunities you didn't even know existed come to you because you've been putting in the work, creating really cool content, and bringing value.
What's a brand that you're really impressed with today that you follow or you think highly of?
There's a few. I'm trying to think of so most of the brands I really like aren't even financial related. I look a lot like high-end luxury fashion brands. I look a lot like, what are they doing with their creative elements? I'm trying to think, like on my dream partner list right now is like a crypto company is one where they're promoting financial literacy. A fashion brand is one where they're affordable fashion, but really also talking about financial literacy for women. Some sports teams, like the Galaxy is our soccer team here in LA. So I want to create content with them because I did a partnership last year with the Lakers and their credit union. Unfortunately, the project never aired because of management switchover. But I was able to interview the Lakers about generational wealth and how they're creating it and not falling into the stigma of being an athlete they make a lot of money but have nothing to show for it. So then I was like, oh, what other teams would I like? So Galaxy is one because soccer is so worldwide that I thought, wow, what if I was to do more like that? So I think brands I really love and look up to are just ones that are like very clean, simplified, modern, but creating content that's not necessarily in their like products. It's not like if they have this product, the content's not always about that. It's about more lifestyle and holistic, because I think those are always interesting brands to me.
Yeah, I think the Lakers are a very interesting brand in that regard, right? If you think about a lot of the ways that they're perceived, like obviously they deliver a basketball product and entertainment, but a lot of the stuff people know about the Lakers is like who's sitting courtside, right? Like, that gets covered as much as half the other things the Lakers do, right? Is Jack there on the side? Is, XY person there? And I think that's a very interesting dynamic about how they've continued to kind of grow that whole feeling of like what it is to be a Lakers fan or part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you nailed it.
So Brittney, you talked to us in LA about TikTok and the work you've done there to create content for that platform. And it's kind of, the use of TikTok is rising for financial services, but there's like a lot of misinformation out there. And so talk to us about first how you got into TikTok, what it kind of takes to be good at that, and then how consumers could kind of sift through the bad information and the good information.
So I'm a little like, it's one of those things. I started TikTok like in 2016 or 2017 because I love dance. I was a dancer. And then I was like a little bummed that I stopped. Just like I invested in crypto and then I was bummed that I stopped. Okay, anyway, you look back and you're like, oh, I should have trusted my gut a little bit. So I started TikTok years ago, but it wasn't until last year that I found myself on TikTok more, just consuming the content. I thought it was hilarious. Like there's so much hilarious content and it's so relatable. So then I saw this influx of financial people talking about content, and like the ability or their growth ability was significant. Like talk about a new platform where there's huge opportunity for growth. Instagram's hard, Facebook is hard to get that type of growth because they've been around longer, right? And they constantly change their algorithms. So it's almost frustrating more than anything. With TikTok, I saw a lot of it is like, oh, there's like this pureness aspect still to it where you create content, one video goes viral, you get a lot of growth, and there's now and then I started to learn the business. Then there's all these brands who are looking to TikTok to find their next influencer. So I thought, wow, this is like a perfect timing for me to go back to TikTok and really build some consistency there with what I'm doing. And I'm still new. I've been like probably since I saw you guys like a month, maybe almost 2 months in of just like posting regularly and trying to find my like, you know, rhythm with it, right? Like any new platform, it takes a minute. You got to first just get content up and consistent, and then you kind of find your rhythm with how you're going to do it. Some are funny, some are educational. So I'm still learning, but I just think for me, my business model is now looking at brand partnerships, and I talk to people who are on the brand partnerships at TikTok and saying, Brittney, you need to be here. Like the amount of money brands are paying these influencers is ridiculous. And I thought, oh, great. So there's opportunity. And like you said, Anna, there's a lot of people who are giving, you know, financial advice. Some of them are really great, like have 1 million followers, not CFPs, but they're smart and they know what they're saying. But then there's a lot of people who aren't great and they're not even credentialed. They've never worked with a client in their life. They don't even know what broker dealers are, but they're out there. They get an influence. So I think it's just getting in there, learning my rhythm, looking for the opportunities to, again, showcase who I am, which is what I've done in the, I guess, the financial planning arena. Look, I'm a financial planner. I'm actually credentialed. I worked with clients for 15 years and I'm able to create content, which is how I've worked with these brands in the past. So I just want now to be more strategic with my TikTok. And I think advisors, they don't necessarily need to be a TikTok star, but if they're already creating content, I know it's like one more thing we have to do, but we're already creating content. So to ignore TikTok, I think is a little, it's not good. It's not smart to ignore TikTok because there's still so much opportunity. And even if it's just like, you know how we all think, oh, well, I have it on Instagram, so people will find it there. Well, no, because like we just discussed earlier, sometimes people watch YouTube. Sometimes people go to TikTok. They don't even have go to YouTube. They don't even have Instagram, or they have Instagram and they don't have TikTok. So it's like you got to put your content kind of everywhere. So whoever's on those platforms will find it. Because if not, you're just not leveraging the content. Like we all work so hard to create content. And if you're not leveraging it, what's the point? And even me, like I was talking to someone recently because I'm hiring someone new. He said, look, I want to be more strategic with my content. I create content. It needs to be everywhere, like a Gary Vee. Like I need to put it in every platform in that versions, in their version of content, and be a little bit more strategic with how I'm producing this.
And remember, some people still use Pandora, so that's a thing too.
So somehow I got content on Pandora. Jamie, you and my father are the only ones who pay for Pandora, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's only like $4.99 a month. And
Oh, great.
you know.
That's a deal. Actually cheaper than Spotify. So, hey, you're doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah, keeping those playlist costs down. Yeah, it's so I saw a thing on Gary. You mentioned Gary Vee, and he was talking about TikTok. Somebody asked him, right, like, do you need to be on there? And I mean, obviously, his answer is yes. But he brought up such a good point. He goes, look, 25 years ago, if you wanted to be in like the music world, like where did you have to be? You had to be on MTV. Nobody cares about being on MTV anymore. They need to be on TikTok, right? He's like, there will be another version of that next too. So he's like, you can't look at all this stuff as like, oh, well, I shouldn't be on TikTok because, Twitter and Facebook, you just told me to be on those. He's like, yeah, there's going to be 3 more iterations of all of those that we're going to have to be on if you want to be in front of people in your target market. And I thought that was a great point of just about MTV because like, all 3 of us definitely remember that, right? Where we would all watch MTV, and like if you wanted to reach our generation, like you had to be there, right? Like you had to have commercials, the products, the people, and that's how they got to us. And today, right? I haven't, even though I have Pandora, I haven't watched MTV. I mean, I know it still exists, right? But I haven't watched MTV in 15 years. It's different mediums now.
Yeah, I watched the same one, which is fun. And I love what you're saying because there's going to be, like you said, 3 more iterations, many more. So it's like that constant evolution if we want to stay like, I don't know, relevant, stay in the minds of our customers, of our clients, as a media expert, as whatever you're doing in your business model, you have to be willing to keep up with the times. And it doesn't mean that you just scrap everything else because at the end of the day, it's kind of the same business model that we all know, which is get in front of people, create value, get their information. So if that platform goes away, you have their information somehow, their name, email, phone number. And now they're a lead that you can do something with, sell them financial planning, investment management, an online course, a speaking. It's the same model. It's like, I started my business doing workshops. That was how I built my client base. I just did these lunch and learn workshops. I feel the same now. It's like with these social media, it's like, how do you get in front of them, create value, and then offer them something to get the information. So if Instagram goes away tomorrow, well, I still have a business,
So Brittney, one of the things we love to ask here is what do you hope your legacy will be in life and in this profession?
No, it feels so like retiree. It's a good question. My main, I don't know if I think about legacy so much, but I do try to just be, for me, I just want to have a fun, full life. Like, that's all. Like, this life, I want to be fully in it, present, live it, and I do for the most part. And I think that inspires others. So when people see me in the business world, I think it's inspiring, or even in my personal life, they think it's inspiring. But really, it's for me. I mean, it's kind of selfish, but I think like this is my life. It's up to me to make it. It's up to me to be happy. It's up to me to like do cool things where I feel alive and energetic. So I guess like that would be kind of, I guess the legacy I would want to live is that I was fun. Like people tell me I'm fun to be around, but it's because I actually just want to have fun in my life. So I create that fun element wherever I go, even if it's like a training day or like I'm sitting behind, doing CE credits or I'm dancing or whatever it is. I just try to have fun. And I think that's really, I like being around those type of people. So I know like that energy is just, especially now, it's not that I'm naive to what's going on in the world. There's a lot of challenging times for people at any stage, right? At any economic stage or life stage. There's real stuff happening that's not easy in life. And I've lived it. I have it myself. But to choose to be happy, to choose to have fun is something that I really just try to live by.
I love that. Like, we had Nzinga Shah at our conference a couple of weeks ago, and she talked about focusing on the positive. Like, and she's a DEI professional, right? So there's a lot of negative things to focus on, but she talks about focusing on the positive, and I love that. But Brittney, where can people find you? Like on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok? Give us all the details on that. Whatever you want.
You can find me anywhere, but I'll just say the two most are financiallywiseinc.com. Just go there, sign up, get on the list, or look at what I do. And then Instagram, I would say, is the one that if you want to like direct message me, do it on Instagram. So at Brittney Castro is my Instagram handle.
Well, Anna, Brittney, that was fantastic. Whenever we are together all again, we are going to do a TikTok together. So
careful what you ask.
It will be my first, so I'm really excited.
Yes. When can we make that? When are we going to be together? What conference is coming up? I'm going to send you guys a choreography now.
Yeah, we have to make the choreography very simple for me, but I'm fine with dancing.
Just come with the dapper handkerchief and your
pocket square.
Let's just show.
Well, that's what they do, right? The men that don't dance that well in those, they put them behind the women now in the TikTok videos, and they halfway do the dance, and it's totally okay. So that'll be me. And we'll do that. Well, this was fantastic. I appreciate everything that you've done, and just being a friend of ours too, and spending time with us. And I know that this was fast too. I mean, you accepted, and we were like 2 days later, we're on here. So the speed of getting things out is nice too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you'll know if you roll with me, I just like to do things in the now. It's just the easiest way to live, man. You don't think too much, you just do it.
I love that. Yeah.
Well, everybody else, thank you for joining us this week on the Framework Podcast.